Today I'm going to be diving into the very first saga of One Piece. I didn't realize in a manga series just how attached I could feel to characters. My mind right now is a jumble. And that is extreme for one, but also wow. I just got shivers. I genuinely got shivers and it really made me so emotional. This shook me. Oh my god, will this series stop tugging at my heartstrings? And it's just the most heartbreaking thing. I'm kind of excited now to go on to the next thing. It's not bad. It's not bad by any means. I'm just losing interest. I'll cry in a minute if I keep talking about it. And I was just like, what? Hi everyone, welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I'm so excited because I will be diving into a whole new world. And as a reader, it's honestly one of the best feelings ever. But I'm also really terrified. I'm scared. I'm really, really scared about diving into this epic, long series. It just for a little bit of context as well, I haven't really read a lot of manga. In fact, the only manga I've really read is Yaoi, and this is probably my favourite manga. I don't know what this says about me, but just know that I'm still quite a noob at the whole manga side of things. But yes, I would wholeheartedly recommend Dick Fight Island. Okay, today I'm going to be diving into the very first saga of One Piece. One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. And I've gotten the first few volumes, well the first 12 volumes. I believe this is the entire East Blue saga. So hopefully that's right. I've been honestly reading the wiki religiously, trying my best to avoid spoilers, but just trying to understand this really vast and epic world and how I'm supposed to read them. So I think the best way of reading them is by saga. I don't know, maybe it's by arc. I think I want to read them by saga, although it does depend if I do end up liking this series. I might not continue after this. Who knows? You'll have to watch and find out. Now, the reason I'm diving into One Piece is because I did a video recently with Murphy Napier and Amber Elise, and they both absolutely love and adore the series, and they were trying to convince me to read it. Well, I crumbled quickly, didn't I? Now I find myself owning the very first 12 volumes of One Piece. I know I can read this online as well. I believe I can pay $2 a month and read it online. But I'm really a physical, visual reader, and I don't know if reading from a screen will be amazing for me, but I will end up having to do that with future sagas because these are so hard to get hold of. Oh my god. These three weren't. That one was. And there are just so many of these that obviously I'm scared. Why am I doing this? Honestly, I'm deflecting calls from my bank right now, already anticipating the amount of ones I'll be buying from eBay and stuff like that. So oh boy. So in One Piece we follow Luffy, and he's always dreamed about being king of the pirates. I believe one day he eats a devil fruit, or is it demon fruit? It's a devil fruit. Yeah, it's an enchanted devil fruit that gives him, I think, stretching abilities, he can stretch his body. But the downfall of having this devil fruit is that he now can't swim. He won't be able to swim anymore, and with him wanting to be king of the pirates, that's a really big thing for him. But years later, he goes on a quest to find the One Piece, which is a hidden treasure, I believe, and he has to build a crew. And I honestly love pirates. Pirates are some of my favourite. I very rarely ever read anything to do with pirates because they never really quite hit the same. But say the early Pirates of the Caribbean movies, oh my god, some of my favourite movies of all time. I've been looking for something like this my entire life. One Piece? More like One True Love. Although we will see after I finish this, because you never know, I might not like it. But this does have, I think, over 100 volumes in over 1,000 chapters, and it's been running for 2 decades, and I think it's gonna be ending in a couple of years, and I'm sitting here whoa, what have I signed up for? Somebody stop this madness. Somebody stop this madness. So I'm going to be going through volume by volume. I will most likely check in after each volume, my thoughts and my feelings on this series and all of that. It will be spoiler filled, so if you haven't yet read One Piece, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe go read it and then come back. But all the timestamps will be down in the description box as well. And yeah, I think I'm going to head off and read the first volume. Hope to God I like it. So without further ado, let's begin my very first journey into One Piece. I found myself laughing at times, but then also gasping at the same time. There were so many moments in this first volume that really threw me off guard, which is great. I found myself reading this pretty quickly, the first volume, which is about that much of this omnibus. Oh my god, there was just okay. So at the very, very start, we start off with Gold Roger. He's getting executed, and he tells everyone about this One Piece, this treasure that he's hidden. And it starts off the great era of piracy. And then some time has passed, we meet Monkey D. Luffy, and oh my god, well, one, he's a little bit of a little shit, right? To begin with, he's a little bit of a little shit, but he's just so endearing, and he's I'll talk more about Luffy in a second. But yeah, he is in this small village. What was the town called again? I want to be awful with remembering like character names half the time, as well as area names. It just says a small harbour village. It doesn't really say where it is. But yeah, we have Luffy. He's part of this village. And there are a group of pirates led by Captain Shanks. Now, this is kind of like a moment where like my mouth dropped the floor. But yeah, there was another pirate group, I think the Mountain Clan, that come in. And Captain Shanks doesn't do anything. Like, he doesn't fight back or anything when the leader of the Mountain Clan tries to start a fight with him. And Luffy is like, you coward, to Captain Shanks, like, why didn't you defend yourself, things like that. And what I actually really love is pretty early on, Captain Shanks tells Luffy, when you grow up, maybe you'll understand, kid. He just got some grog on me, that's all. Needless killing doesn't mean. I love that. So Luffy doesn't quite get it. He's like very young and naive, and you can really tell. But like his attitude and his sunny disposition, even in the face of, you know, like such strong foes, it's gonna get him in trouble, and it already gets him in trouble, and that's kind of what I love about him. It's just, he doesn't care. He genuinely doesn't care. He'll say what's on his mind. He'll say exactly what he means in here, whether it's gonna get him in trouble or not, and the outcome will depend on how he responds to it. But he does end up eating the devil fruit and gets those like rubber band powers. And what I love about it is that we had before this the fact that he's been looked down upon because he can't swim. Like, he is too young to be a pirate at this point. And everyone's like, oh, it's just Luffy, and he's just, obviously he can't be a pirate, he's too young and he can't even swim. So like that kind of insecurity is already kind of planted in him. But after getting these rubber man powers, he is now definitely never going to be able to swim. So from the get-go, I feel like we got some fantastic characterization of Luffy. It is kind of heartbreaking the way he kind of responds to Captain Shanks after the fight, and he's like, I need to go and find a real role model and stuff. I'm just like, oh gosh, but he is young, I'm not holding it against him. And he does kind of rectify that a little bit, but at the same time makes it worse when the leader of the Mountain Clan comes back and Luffy starts a fight with him, leading to Captain Shanks having to save him, and it leads to a moment when Luffy is pushed into the water, the sea, and there's a sea monster, and Captain Shanks saves him, and Captain Shanks also loses an arm. Like, as soon as I saw that panel, my mouth dropped. I was like, wait, what the fuck? This is really happening right now? Okay. So that was like really interesting, and honestly, I was worried that he died. This panel here, that is beautiful, but it shocked the life out of me. So now Captain Shanks doesn't have an arm. So like that was really touching, because Luffy is the one who like stands up for Captain Shanks, and like that's what led to the fight. So like he's kind of changed his mind about him, and he is like starting to see from his perspective and stuff like that. So like that was really, really beautiful to see. And then I think about 10 years later, Luffy is now like kind of all grown up, and he is setting off on his journey. Luffy's mission, and honestly I do love it when we have a story where the plot is driven by really a goal. Like, it's kind of like a simple goal, you know, find 10 people to join his crew and find the One Piece treasure to become the King of the Pirates. That's kind of just like the bottom line storyline, and I love it. It's like, it's simple, but it's brilliant, because that means there are so many other possibilities that we can go on this journey. And already, like, this was volume 1, and already I feel like we had quite a few different characters, we had different locations, we had different side storylines, and it was just like so action-packed and so like endearing and so good. So I was really enjoying it. Let's say if my memory treats me well. So then Luffy ends up coming across a whirlpool, and he locks himself in a barrel, which is like good thinking. Like, Luffy is smart, he's very smart, and he ends up watching a show on this like deserted island, which is where the pirate captain Lady Alvida is, and she's awful, she's horrible, she is very vain. Yeah, Lady Alvida, she was something, but she's got nothing on Captain Morgan. She's got nothing on Captain Morgan, but she is awful. She has a cabin boy called Kobe, and Kobe has been her cabin boy for 2 years, but he's been desperate to escape. Kobe really wants to join the Marines, but Kobe ends up coming across Luffy, and there's just like such a really, again, like this is why Luffy's like personality is so infectious and endearing, because Luffy is like, yeah, I'm going to be the pirate king, like nothing's going to stop me, and Kobe himself is like too timid and too scared to leave Lady Alvida. But because Luffy is so determined, and you just can't help but get on his level whenever you're with him, Kobe then realizes that he wants to escape Lady Alvida and then finally become part of the Marines. So that was really good. I really liked the introduction to Kobe and like the parallels with him and Luffy, because Luffy wants to be pirate king, Kobe wants to be be part of the Marines, but the Marines hunt pirates, so it's kind of like that whole dynamic there, but it was still really, really good. And we also find out more as well about Luffy's mission of becoming the Pirate King. It involves going to something called the Grand Line, which I honestly have no idea what that actually is. I think it was mentioned that some kind of pirate graveyard, but it's very dangerous, and that is why Luffy really needs this really strong pirate crew, and it's just one step closer to him becoming the Pirate King, so like that's in the way. So I really love that world building aspect of it. This is like another spanner in the works on Luffy's adventure in order to become who he wants to be, and like that's just so good. Like I love that. Kobe also tells Luffy about this guy called Roronoa Zolo, although I believe his name is actually Zoro. I think in the English translation by Shonen Jump and Viz Media, they've changed it. I know that because when I was on a little bit of a binge watch of different One Piece videos on YouTube as well, trying to find out how to start the series and start it well, somebody mentioned about that name change and that Zolo is actually Zoro or Zoro. Yeah, I don't know. I will say Zoro, but please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. And correct me if I'm wrong about any pronunciations at all. Like, honestly, like, that would be, like, really helpful. So we get to Shelltown, and Luffy really wants to find Zoro. And Zoro's actually tied up. He is a bounty hunter. He hunts people who have bounties on them and then claims the rewards. So he's tied up, so Luffy wants to go and talk to him and see if he can join his pirate crew. And we also meet Captain Morgan's son, who is, like, an antagonist. He is, like, a horrible, horrible, spoiled brat. Like, the way he goes on, the way he wants to hide behind Captain Morgan and, you know, use his daddy's influence is just so funny, and a really amazing contrast between the son and Captain Morgan, because Captain Morgan is terrifying. At one point, he gets the Marines to shoot themselves in the head. They don't do it, but like they're about to, until like Luffy kind of saves the day. At least I don't think they did it. I don't think they shot themselves in the head, but like they turned the guns on themselves and they were going to do it. Like his influence was massive, and he's just scary compared to his son and to Lady Alvida. But I absolutely loved Zoro and the way he's introduced, because we have a bit of a flashback in a kid. Like this made me shocked. This shook me. I was shooketh for a good 10 minutes afterwards. But there was a flashback to Zoro's childhood where he wants to be like the greatest swordmaster of all time, and he still wants to be. And he is trying to beat this girl. Like he has a friend who is a young girl. She is the senpai's daughter, and he's never been able to beat her. And she says to him, like, let's make this promise. Let's both try and be the greatest swordmaster of all time. And at the end, let's fight each other to be the greatest swordmaster. But then literally in the next panel, oh my god, like I was so sad. Zolo, there's been an accident. It's Kiina. She fell down the stairs. She's dead. And there's literally a panel of her with a sheet over her face because she's dead. And I was just like, what? I was so shocked. Like, first we had someone get their arm taken clean off, and then we have, like, this young girl dying just after making a promise with Zoro about, you know, becoming the greatest swordmaster of all time. I was, oh my god, like, that was sad. That was some sad shit right there. It just hit me. It hit me. But it gave, like, Zoro, like, so many different more levels, especially since, as well, one of the reasons why he's tied up is because the young girl in the village, she tries to give him rice at one point. It was so nice as well, because, like, at first he's like, no, I don't want it. But then he, like, eats it, like, from the ground. Like, Luffy helps him eat it from the ground. And he tells Luffy to tell this young girl, make sure you tell her that I ate it all up and loved it. And it was just, like, so nice. Like, it's just like, okay, like, he's not as bad as people are saying he is. But the reason why he's tied up, it turns out, is because he protected the young girl from Captain Morgan's son. So he is a good guy. He is a good guy. He had this bad reputation that we kind of got told at first, and then turns out he's actually pretty good. Zoro and Luffy end up winning against Captain Morgan, and Kobe ends up staying so that he can join the Marines. Now we've left it so, this is like hilarious. Like this is one of the times when this made me laugh. Like it made me laugh so many times actually, but it's when Zoro and Luffy are in this little boat, this dinghy I think they call it, and they need food, and Luffy sees a bird flying above, and he uses his like rubber powers to get this bird, but he goes up, grabs this bird, but the bird flies off. It's just so funny. So now we've left it that Zoro has come across a couple of pirates who were in the water, and they're talking about Buggy the clown. And that is terrifying me already, because I think that's him on the cover there, and I hate clowns. I hate clowns so much, I'm actually quite scared of them. So I'm really scared about this next pirate that we're going to meet in volume 2. Luffy and Zoro are kind of split up, and Luffy has dropped into this town, and he's met this girl. Her name is Nami, and she specializes in robbing pirates, and that's kind of how we've left Volume 1 between Luffy and Nami. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was so adventurous and so funny. I took photos. I took photos of like pages that I loved and moments that I loved. Also, how did I forget this? How did I forget this? Luffy at the very start stabs himself in the face to become a pirate? What? That happened on literally like page 3, and I hadn't even gotten into the story yet. I was like, what? This is happening already? Jeez Louise. Another moment I absolutely found hilarious was between Captain Shanks and Luffy too. At the very start, when Luffy's like, I want to be a pirate, I want to be a pirate. But Pirate Shanks says, you're just too young, kid. Maybe in 10 years I'll give you a chance. Don't get upset now. Here, have some milk. Oh boy, thanks. Say, a real pirate would never drink milk. That was a dirty trick. Like, the humour is just on point. Like, that was just hilarious. It's not that funny, really, but it is. I did feel bad for Kobe as well when Luffy tells him, and you're gutless too. You really are worthless. I'm just like, these manga characters, honestly, are just so honest. They're just a bit too honest. But it does lead to some great character moments between them, and they do become friends, and like it's just so heartwarming as well, and makes it that much more sweeter when they say goodbye to one another on their different paths, because they are on different paths, and it's just beautiful. Honestly, love Volume 1. I'm so excited to dive into Volume 2, which is... I'm excited but terrified. Freaking clowns. I might have a running leaderboard on the volumes in what I would rate them out of 10. So I would probably give Volume 1 a solid 8 out of 10, because genuinely I had such a fun time. I had such a fun time with Volume 1. It was great. It was honestly great, and I cannot wait to read more of them. I still don't like clowns. Not that Buggy the Clown was scary. I mean, it isn't over yet. We do have a bit of a cliffhanger where Buggy the Clown reveals that he knew Captain Shanks. So I'm intrigued to know what that kind of dynamic is. So Buggy the Clown is still in it. There is no defeat on Buggy the Clown just yet. It felt more of a contained volume, this one. Whereas the first volume had a lot of seafaring adventure, this one was a lot more grounded in one place with one villain. I still found it pretty good. I really enjoyed the exploration of the themes of this one, especially since we had different characters kind of dealing with what their treasure is. Like, what does treasure mean to you? And so we had, say, like this really cute dog. My heart was going to break if that dog had died. But the owner had died in hospital, but this dog still guards this pet shop. And it's just like the most heartbreaking thing. Like this, it was so cute. It was such a cute dog. And the way it defends the pet shop as well is incredible. So one of Buggy the Clown's first mates is a lion tamer, and there was like this huge lion, and there was like a dog and lion battle because the dog was guarding this pet shop, and it was just incredible. It was amazing, and I loved seeing that. We also had the mayor as well, and he wants to kind of guard the town. Even though he's been a bit of a coward so far, he really does try and stand up for the town at the end of this volume and tries to defend it. And again, even though the town is deserted, the town is rotting, it's still his treasure. And I love that. I love the exploration of that, because we also have Luffy telling Nami that the straw hat that he has is his treasure, even though it doesn't have jewels or anything inside of it. It's just his treasure because a friend gave him it. I just love how this volume explored that. I mean, there is plenty of action. There is still action, there's still fighting. So we had Nami kind of betray Luffy at the very start by tying him up and giving him to Buggy the Clown. So he's in this cage, and Nami pretends to join Buggy the Clown so that she can rob him. But she is asked to blast Luffy with Buggy's balls. The amount of times Buggy said, ready my special Buggy balls. And I'm just like, Buggy, no one wants to touch your balls. But Nami does end up saying that Luffy isn't a bad guy, even though she is adamant that pirates are bad people, because I believe she's lost someone to pirates. She did briefly mention something about losing someone to them. So there is definitely a lot to unpack there in why Nami is so against pirates. So I'm interested to find out more about that. And Nami might even be their new navigator. I love that we get these new characters coming in, and they don't always like click straight away. In fact, like say with Zoro, like he doesn't click with Luffy straight away. Neither did Kobe really, and Nami definitely not. You know, she did hand him into Buggy the Clown. But I love this because it just makes the friendships that end up blossoming between them that much better and a lot more complex. So like Nami is still struggling to join the team as a navigator because she is still against pirates, and she's like, you know, I have my own goals, but you know what, I might join you. And she hasn't like definitely said she's going to be a navigator for them, but I'm interested to see what happens there. We get to see even more of Zoro's incredible sword fighting skills. Like, he is an incredible fighter. And the action scenes are, I mean, to me, sometimes they go like really fast, and sometimes I don't know what's going on in that moment. Like, even as I'm studying the panel, there's just so much movement, and I don't quite know who's serving what blow and what have you. But I believe in Zoro, okay? I believe in him, that he is the one who's whipping the other people's asses. All in all, it was a good volume. It continued with the humour, it had a lot of action in it, and I would probably say that I still preferred Volume 1, for instance. I thought Volume 1 was like just so great, like such a great introduction. And this one was a great continuation of exploring the characters and making the character dynamics even deeper. And I absolutely love Luffy and Zoro's kind of dynamic as well. So I would probably give this volume like 6 out of 10. It's not bad by any means, and I feel like 6 isn't even low, but I do think I prefer the first volume so much more. And I do think Volume 3 might be even better, you know? And I might end up changing some of the scores at the end of this vlog just to see if I do think the scores are accurate, because, you know, I'm only 2 volumes in and I'm not quite sure how to rate them just yet. So when I get a whole picture of all 12 volumes, then that's when I will kind of look at all the ratings and maybe give it a final rating, because things might change. So take the 6 out of 10 with a grain of salt. And yeah, I'm just, oh my god, like, I'm loving my time reading this, okay? It was a rush trying to finish Volume 3 before it got too dark. I want to keep using the natural light. Fortunately, I managed it. Finished Volume 3. And Volume 3 was good. I don't think it was as strong as the first 2 volumes. A few things. I'm glad we managed to wrap up the Buggy the Clown kind of storyline thing there. I was just not liking Buggy, okay? I don't like clowns. So glad that all got wrapped up. Luffy won the fight. And it turns out that Buggy and Captain Shanks from the very first volume were apprentices together, and Captain Shanks actually stole a treasure map from Buggy, although steal, you know, the pirates for one, but also Buggy found the map and kind of like stole it himself. So when you're dealing with pirates, like, what really belongs to who, you know? Which is why I've been enjoying looking at treasure properly, rather than it being, you know, money or gold or, you know, the kind of literal sense of treasure, but like more the metaphorical sense of treasure and the feelings that they give you. So I've been enjoying looking at that, and then you can really tell like the difference between good characters and bad characters. Good characters have treasure that means something more than just surface level and materialistic, whereas it seems like the bad characters are the ones that are the materialistic pirates, the ones that want the literal treasure. And I mean, I guess I could argue that Luffy is out to get the One Piece, you know, the ultimate treasure of all time, but I don't think he has like selfish reasons for it. I don't think he wants to be the pirate king to, you know, like rule in a very tyrannical way. I think he genuinely wants to do it because he thinks it would be fun. I don't think he's evil because he's after the One Piece, but there are pirates who are after the One Piece who seem to be the bad guys, like the evil ones, for wanting literal treasure. So I've been enjoying the parallels between the treasures. Yeah, Volume 3, it did slow down a bit again. We did actually get to a random island where Luffy and Nami ended up coming across a guy who'd been marooned there for 20 years. And I found that whole bit just a little bit weird. I kind of like what that part of the storyline said, because this guy who's been marooned on this island for 20 years, he was guarding empty treasure, but he didn't realize it was empty. But now he can enjoy the island and enjoy the strange creatures that inhabit this island. So I like that, but that whole little plot point there I didn't really care for. It just felt a little bit random. So then we get to another island, and on this one we have like a full-on village, and we meet Usopp, and he's a bit of a girl who cried wolf character. He keeps crying that there are pirates coming, and everyone in town is absolutely sick of him. They don't believe a word he says. And then Usopp meets Luffy and Nami and Zoro, and he tells them about this girl who is bedbound, who lives in a mansion, who might be able to help them get a bigger vessel, because now that they're expanding their crew and they need to be in the big leagues, they need a bigger vessel because all they have is this dinghy. So Usopp ends up going to this girl. He tells her stories and these really imaginative tales that he's gone through that are I think they're lies. Like, everyone says they're lies, and maybe they are. Maybe there's some truth to some of his stories that he tells. But yeah, he just like kind of comforts this girl and makes her feel like the world is big and that she's part of it. And it's like really heartwarming and touching. So I kind of like Usopp. Not the best introduction, I think, of the characters yet. I still prefer like Zoro's introduction, and I quite like Nami's introduction. But you know what? It's absolutely fine. Every introduction of a character cannot just blow me away. That would be ridiculous. But there is a butler character who is very protective of this girl and tries to kick Usopp out and get him, you know, away from this girl. But it turns out a little bit later on that Luffy and Usopp end up overhearing. This butler turns out to be someone else, Captain Kuro, who 3 years before was apparently executed. But he's actually been working as a butler for this young girl in order to get her fortune. So I find it a little bit, like, it's a little bit weird and ridiculous, the way that they get overheard. And there is this strange hypnotist man, which is actually kind of a little scary. He like walks in backwards, and like that's a really scary visual, and he can get people to fall asleep like that. And this hypnotist person, what was his name again? Honestly, this is what I'm telling you, like my memory is shocking. Django the hypnotist, he outward says, Operation Murder Miss Kaya is ready to go anytime. The way they talk about their whole plan in front of them, I mean, obviously they don't know that Luffy and Usopp are there, but like it's just that kind of almost a bit of a farcical kind of revelation that we are dealing with a couple of bad guys here, and the butler is in on it and is trying to kill Miss Kaya and trying to get her fortune. Like, we get told it all, and like that's just like a little bit farcical for my liking. So I didn't really like the whole like reveal of that, but I guess it's totally fine. It was a little bit of a shocking moment, so I was like, oh. And now we've ended the volume with Luffy getting hypnotized to fall asleep, and Usopp trying to tell the whole village that there are pirates coming, and nobody believes him. So really interested to see where that goes. So that's kind of the whole story in a nutshell. Going back to the fight with Buggy the Clown, there was a moment where I gasped when Buggy the Clown puts his like claws through the straw hat that Luffy has on that belongs to Captain Shanks, and I honestly, it felt like somebody was tearing out my heart right then. Like, it was kind of, it's almost like this straw hat, because it's so representative of Luffy and his goal and his dream of, you know, becoming a great pirate so that he can give the hat back to Captain Shanks. That's like my dream too, you know. So when something bad happens to the hat, I feel it. I feel it in my heart. Yeah, the claws go right through it, and I'm like, oh my god, you can't damage this hat. It's important. It's all good though, because Nami ends up like stitching it and stuff, but although Luffy does put his finger right through it, so like, that's just Luffy, innit? I also liked in the flashback between Captain Shanks and the Buggy the Clown, we have the talk about the devil fruit and that the sea turns against the people who eat the devil fruit. Because I was wondering, like, well, why is it that they can't swim when they have the devil fruit? And it's because the sea turns against them. Like, it kind of is a little bit obvious, like I should have known that, but I kind of like the explanation of that. I liked how we were told that through a flashback in volume 3, rather than it kind of being like outwardly told earlier on. But it makes it feel like the stakes are even higher for Luffy, the fact that he has had the devil fruit and the sea is against him, like it's actually outwardly against him. I just thought that maybe they just couldn't swim, you know, like if they had the fruit they just couldn't swim. I didn't realize it was because the sea was actually against them when they eat the fruit, and I love that. And there were other really good moments between the characters like later on as well in the village, especially with Luffy and Usopp when they overhear the whole master plan that's going to be in action, and how Luffy literally just stands up and says, don't kill Kaya. This boy, he's just way too confident. He needs a few more life lessons, I think, to learn a bit more tact and not be as revealing. Like, it's very honest. He needs to like kind of keep some things back, you know, especially when we have situations like this where now he's been hypnotized to fall asleep, so they're in a bit of the shitter. You know how I was saying as well that I'm going to give these volumes ratings out of 10 in stars? I'm like, why am I doing stars? I should do it in pieces, you know, like, oh, this is 10 pieces, this is 8 pieces out of 10, you know, like, why didn't I do that? I'm so silly. So I'm going back and I'm gonna say 8 pieces for volume 1, 6 pieces for volume 2, and I think I'm gonna give volume 3 5 pieces out of 10. It was still fun and I'm still really enjoying myself, but I think weakest one so far for me personally. Volume 4 was good. It was good. It was fine. It was fine. It was this literally just follows straight up on volume 3. I feel like volume 3 and 4, and even the next, I haven't even started volume 5 yet, but I feel like we still haven't finished or wrapped up the storyline that we have right now, which is a good thing. I like the fact that we have a bit of a longer arc, and the whole battle with the Black Cat pirates, I find that absolutely fine. The stakes are quite high, the fighting's pretty good. So in this one, it's literally just, well, nobody believes Usopp at all in the village. So now he's kind of like waited on the beach for the Black Cat pirates to strike. But he does get Luffy and Nami and Zoro part of the plan to stop them, but they wait at the wrong beach. Which is so funny. So like they do this kind of quick attempt to reach the pirates because they've gone on to a different North Beach which has their boat on it, and it has Nami's treasure on it as well. So all she really cares about is her treasure. She doesn't want them to get it, which is funny. It leads to a funny moment between her and Zoro gets stuck in the mud and stuff like that. And Luffy as well, he runs north. He gets told to run north and he thinks he's running north, but it turns out he's gone the wrong direction because he was just going where it was coldest because he thought that north meant cold. So he's just so funny. It's so silly but so funny. But yeah, they do end up kind of catching up with the pirates. I really like how Usopp stands up to them and really tries to defend his village, even though they don't treat him very well, and neither did Kaya. Kaya kind of pushed him away, but Captain Kuro reveals himself to, can't remember their name, but it was somebody who was close to Kaya, and now they know the truth, that Usopp was telling the truth about the pirates, and that Captain Kuro for 3 years was pretending to be the butler. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, why? I know he's trying to make it seem believable so that he can inherit her money and no one will ask questions, but like it seems like such a stretch for a pirate to go those lengths for 3 years. 3 years to pretend to be somebody else, to then murder them after all that time and inherit their money. I feel like that's such a weird plan, but I'm trying not to think too hard about the holes of that plan, and instead focusing on the battle itself. The battle was like so fun. It involved like a lot of different things happening at once. We had Luffy getting hypnotized and picking up this big thing and falling asleep while carrying it, so now he's knocked out, and Zoro trying to fight with one sword, and you know, we get loads of little character moments within that battle, which I don't really like battles all that much half the time. Like, I don't like wars and stories because I don't really follow battle scenes very well, but when it's a battle like this, which, well, one, I can see visually and it's beautifully illustrated as well, by the way, but like I get to see character moments as well within that fighting. So it's not just fighting, it's kind of like, oh, we can see Zoro, he's fighting with one sword, but he kind of needs all of his swords to fight, and we see how Nami tries to help him with that, and it's so good having those little things within all of that action, and it helps make it so that the pacing isn't too off, because otherwise it would have just been all action and nothing to do with character, which the first few volumes have been very good at building the character. So it would have like slowed it right down if like zero character work was done. But fortunately there is plenty of character stuff happening in there. It's going on a little too long though, I think, the kind of current storyline with Captain Kuro. But I guess after knowing there's over 100 volumes, you know, 2-3 volumes of this Captain Kuro is probably nothing really in the grand scheme of things. But right now, especially after all of the stuff that's happened in the first few volumes, to have this one continue on, it was like volume 3, volume 4, and volume 5, which honestly, I'm going to be such a nightmare later on when there are arcs that last so much longer. But it's fine. It'll just mean that the downfall of Captain Kuro will just taste that much more sweeter. It will. I'm just kind of trying to find my feet with what I like in the One Piece story. Like, do I like the slower character work? Do I like the action-packed scenes? Do I like both? Do I not like, you know, I'm trying to find my feet with this. So I do still think this one was still pretty good, and I'm going to give this one 5 pieces out of 10 again. I'm not 100% on board with what's happening in this village. I'm kind of excited now to go on to the next thing. Honestly, I want them to move on from this village and start going on the high seas again. That's what I want. Okay, volume 5 was fine as well. It wasn't amazing. I did like that it wrapped up the story with Captain Kuro, and it was still a really great battle. I really enjoyed the battle, and seeing the kind of backstory with Usopp as well was quite heartbreaking, touching. Like, oh my god, will this series stop tugging at my heartstrings? I'm getting sick of it making me emotional. Every single character seems to have a sad backstory, and it is making me care so much for these characters already though. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Usopp's opening, but seeing him develop as a character, even through those little volumes that I've read so far with him in it. Like, I love the backstory of why he is considered like the liar and why he kept shouting pirates, even though there weren't pirates coming to this village. And it's all to do with his mum and the fact that his mum was dying and his dad had gone off. He's a captain who is part of Captain Shang's crew, which I don't know if I mentioned. There's so much to remember, so I might have not mentioned that. But yeah, Usopp's dad is part of Captain Shang's crew. So he is like a full-blooded pirate and he does have ties to that side of things. But because his mum was dying, he kept shouting to the village that the pirates are coming, partly because that was his desire, that, you know, his dad was going to come back and bring a cure for his mother, which never happened, but he just continued to do that. And you know what, it was so touching as well to see the villagers as well, and the way that they kind of relied on Usopp to tell them these stories and to almost like wake them up every day shouting these conspiracy theories that pirates are coming, and the way that they're going to miss him. And he's left, he's joined the crew now, so they're not going to really have a goodbye moment, or at least not that I know of. And I just love how One Piece so far has developed. Every single place that we've gone to, there's been some sort of development with the world or like the characters in the background and how each of these characters fit and connect, and it's just beautifully coming alive before my eyes. And I'm kind of wondering, like, how did I not read this earlier? And these volumes have a little bit of a strange structure, because when we defeated Captain Kuro, I thought that might be the end of the volume, even though it would have been very short. But no, the volume continues. We have the crew want to find a chef for the ship, and they end up as well, really randomly, shooting a cannon into a cliff, where they meet Isaku and Johnny, who used to be Zoro's old bounty hunter pals, and they tell them of like this chef on this floating restaurant thing. I think it's called an ocean going restaurant, where there is a kind of a sous chef called Sanji who we meet, and he is like very violent with the customers. And honestly, like, I don't blame him. I've worked retail for years, right? I worked retail for about 12 years, and honestly, some of the customers deserved to get beaten up, not gonna lie. And I can say that now because I don't work retail anymore, but a lot of customers deserved it. And so Sanji's introduction is kind of him beating up a customer for them having a fly in their soup, and he cracks a joke, and it's funny, it's great. It does feel a little bit like jaunty as well, though. We did just have this big battle and saving somebody's life, and then we go to this restaurant, and yeah, the restaurant's a bit of a weird setting right now. I don't know how I feel about it. So going from the village with this big 3-year plan battle to a restaurant. It's weird, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful. One thing I've got to mention as well, actually, is when we were on the island and we had Usopp in this island, and we had these 3 little kids who were part of Usopp's crew. Like, I don't know why I forgot to mention them. They are so adorable, so incredible. The way they defend and try to protect Miss Kaya is so good and so brilliant, and the way that they like pretend to be asleep from the hypnotist, and then they end up getting up and saving Miss Kaya, and it was just great, and I loved seeing them do that. I can't believe I didn't mention them, but they were the sweetest, and the relationship between Usopp and these, you know, kids, his crew, was just so beautiful and so touching, and that whole thing made that whole arc on that island that much sweeter. And probably one of my favourite parts of that was the chase between the hypnotist and Kaya and these 3 boys. Like, I really loved that part. Really made the stakes very high. I wasn't sure if Kaya was going to, you know, be saved, but she was, and she is fine. And she did end up giving the crew a nice ship called the Merry-Go. And I love this ship as well. It's a great ship. It's a beautiful ship. And I also noticed that my review is like all over the place. I've talked about the restaurant, I've talked about the island, but it doesn't matter, okay? My mind right now is a jumble, but we're trying to sift through it, and we'll get there. We will get there. Volume 5 kind of ended with Luffy having to pay a debt to the cook, the main cook, because Luffy accidentally knocked a cannon into the restaurant and damaging it. So he needs to sort of repay his debt on damaging this ocean-going restaurant. It's weird. It's weird, but it's fine. Yeah, I think I want to give this one 5 pieces out of 10 too. I seem to have like started off like really, really strong with the first volume, and then the second volume was still pretty good, and then I think the last 3... How many am I now? 5? Yeah, the last 3 volumes have just been fine, honestly, but I'm still enjoying my time and I think I will continue to do so. Interested to see what we will do now that we have this bigger and grander ship, or the places that we can go, or the people that we can meet. And I'm very interested to meet Sanji properly and to see what his backstory is, and if I'm going to end up liking him or not, and if he's actually going to join the crew as the chef. So bigger adventures await us. Wow, I look so yellow. That's the thing with these fairy lights. But it's fine. This is the last volume I'm reading tonight, and tomorrow I'm so excited to start the next 6 volumes. I can't believe I read 6 volumes in a row, but honestly I had the best time. And this one, volume 6, I think I've enjoyed the most since volume 2, I think. I loved a lot of stuff that happened in it. It's still a bit weird that we have this restaurant thing, but also not too weird. I need to probably get used to some of the weirdness in this. So in volume 6 we end up meeting Don Craig, a pirate captain who has just been to the Grand Line, and his ship is quite badly damaged. His crew are dying of starvation, so he's come to this restaurant to force them to make his crew all of this food. Sanji, who we met in the previous volume, is willing to make them the food, even though Don Craig, should I call him Craig? Is threatening them, and none of the chefs want to make them food. The head chef, Chef Seth, he used to be a pirate who's also been to the Grand Line, and he apparently has a logbook that will probably help Don Krieg in his mission to go back to the Grand Line and last a bit longer. So apparently their ships got taken down by Hawkeye, and we do meet Hawkeye in this, and honestly, this is when this part was blowing my mind. What is Hawkeye's full name? Also, I need to talk about this. I need to talk about Nami stealing the ship. I need to talk about that too, but hang on, I haven't finished talking. Yeah, Hawkeye Mihawk, he is the greatest swordsman in the world, and as we all know, Zoro wants to be the greatest swordsman in the world. So there is this big showcase of skill between them. They battle one another, but Zoro is not good enough yet, and so his dreams of being a swordsman, I think we're going to have more of a drive from Zoro leading into future volumes to try and defeat Hawkeye. He is Zoro's ultimate goal. Defeating him will mean he will be the greatest swordsman, and that's all he wants. He promised his friend he would do it, and damn right he's going to do it. So I really love their little battle, and it was just so good. We got to see how amazing Hawkeye is as a swordsman, but also how amazing Zoro is to last as long as he did. And it looked like Zoro was going to die. I genuinely thought he might have died. I was actually scared for him, but he survived. Hawkeye decided not to kill him, but I feel like Hawkeye could have killed him if he wanted to, so that's really scary. I hope nothing ever happens to Zoro. Seriously, I never want anything to happen to him, or Luffy, or anyone really, or anyone. However, we do need to circle back and talk about Nami taking that ship. What did I say about people who are only after treasure? They are bad people. But there's part of me that's I think she's going to come back, or I think she's going to apologize. I think she's going to stay with them. There was a panel where she was crying after taking the ship, and she said something about if our paths do cross again, she hopes they will let her be a crew member or something like that. So I don't think that's the end of her. I don't think that's the end of this friendship. I think she will realize that what she's done is wrong, and she will be back with our main characters. But that shocked me, though. It shocked me when she knocked the 2 bounty hunters overboard and took the ship and the treasure. I was like, no, don't do it. But she did it, and I just hope she comes back. This is why I'm definitely reading the next 6 volumes tomorrow. This is definitely why. Okay, I'm going to take a break tonight after this one, but I definitely want to finish out the saga tomorrow. I don't think I can wait. I don't think I can wait and spread it out even longer. It's going to be tomorrow. So Don Krieg is still terrorizing by the end of this volume, so we have another cliffhanger leading into me wanting to read volume 7 tonight, but I can't. But I'm excited to see how the Don Krieg storyline wraps up. If it wraps up, I don't know if it'll be another Captain Kuro and last a few volumes before it gets wrapped up. Hopefully not. I kind of hope that storyline gets wrapped up in volume 7 and we can move on from the restaurant. And I'm hoping Sanji will join the crew as well. I think he will. And yeah, I think we had a really successful day today. I would probably give this one 6 pieces out of 10. Yeah, I think this is the best volume I've read since volume 2. But it's mainly due in part to the fight between Hawkeye and Zoro. So yeah, it was so good. It's so good. And I'm kicking myself for even starting this because now I've started, I will not stop. And there again are over 100 volumes. This is my descent into madness. I will become a shell of my former self. I just know it. But anyway, the saga isn't over yet. I still have a ways to go. I'm only halfway through and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens next. If you're wondering why I look like shit, it's because it's early morning and I didn't really get much sleep last night. What else is new? So I finished another volume this morning and it was continuing the storyline on this restaurant. And I mean, it's still good. It's still good. There were, again, some really good character moments. I'm looking forward for the storyline being over. I can't wait for them to move on from the ship. I need to stop. I need to realize that not everything can be wrapped up so quickly and easily. Because there was the same in Usopp's village where I kept saying, oh, you know, this feels like it's dragging out. I also feel like this restaurant storyline is kind of tracking out. But I am still glad I read volume 7 because we had more backstory into Sanji and why he is so adamant on feeding people, as well as his connection with the restaurant and Captain Zeph, or Chef Zeph as he is now, as he is a retired pirate. I did find that storyline of Sanji and Zeph on this island. So, right, what happened is they got knocked overboard during like a storm, and the maelstrom meant that Zeph and Sanji ended up on an island for about like 85 days. How many days was it again? Yeah, day 85 is when they're rescued, but they ran out of food. Well, Sanji ran out of food on day 25. So he lasted 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, 85. I can't count. 60 days without food. And Captain Zeph, he ended up cutting off his leg so that he could eat it, so that he could give Sanji the food. And, like, that is extreme for one, but also, like, wow. Considering this pirate didn't really have a connection with Sanji before this moment because Zeph had pillaged a ship and Sanji was, like, signing up for the ship and signing up for himself against Captain Zeph. And they are not friends whatsoever. But Sanji mentioned something about finding all the blue, which rung true to Captain Zeph's heart. And it's what leads him to like save Sanji and look after him. Although they don't look after each other on this island. But I did find that a little bit unbelievable. But it was a great way of seeing Sanji's connection to the ship and why he's defending it so much in the current day, in the present day, as Don Krieg is still terrorizing the ship. And we have second unit commander Invincible Pearl as well. He has like shields all around his body to protect him. And he's like never bled in battle. He's never been cut in battle. And we have him coming into it and causing a lot of destruction. And he ends up getting hit and bleeding from his nose, which causes him to go out of control and set the ship on fire. It's chaotic. It is chaotic. Volume 7 is pretty chaotic. I'm not taking too much by the storyline, but one thing I really did love that stood out is when, I think it's pronounced Jin, he is a pirate who works for Don Krieg, and in the previous volume, I think it was a previous volume, he gets some like free food off Sanji. In this one, Jin is told to kill Sanji, but Jin stands up to his boss and says he can't do it because Sanji is the first person who showed him kindness, and that means that he won't kill Sanji. Yeah, there was like this whole gas bomb explosion thing that happened, and I think that was like the last thing I read, and Jin had saved Sanji from it, and it looks like Jin might be dying or something. I don't know if he's dead or dying, but yeah, he looks pretty bloody and beat up, and he didn't have a mask on during the gas explosion attack. I'm wondering how he might survive that. But I like him, and I like the fact that it goes back to Sanji and his need to feed people, and that is something that I think is a really good characteristic of Sanji and makes his motivations that much better. And it shows that his kindness and showing somebody else kindness, especially a pirate, has come back to him. Like, that was good karma. So it'll be interesting to explore more of Sanji. I think now he's got to join Luffy. He's got to, right? Because this restaurant ship ain't staying afloat. So we're going to have to leave Chef Zeph and go on his own path. Like, that's what I'm hoping anyway. I think we might get a definite answer in the next volume. Volume 8. I mean, surely this whole battle with Don Krieg will end in volume 8. It's got to. It's dragging on a bit. It is a good volume. I'm still finding the storyline at the minute to be like a little average. So I think I'm going to give this one 5 pieces out of 10 again. I don't think I can give lower than a 5. Like, 5 seems to be the bottom rating I can give this series. I just don't think it's not bad. It's not bad by any means. I'm just losing interest. I mean, I'm still interested. I do want to read more, but I'm losing that initial excitement for the adventure in this volume. So yeah, I think I'm back down to 5 out of 10, which isn't bad. It isn't bad. It's halfway there. And considering I won't give a rating lower than 5 at the minute, the only way is up. Not a whole lot to say about Volume 8 in all honesty, but I am really happy that the Don Krieg storyline is now wrapped up, although I guess he could come back in the future. But we did have an epic battle between Luffy and Don Krieg, and finally that was finished. And I was like exhausted by the end of that battle, and you know what, I feel like that's probably a good thing, because I felt it. I felt the struggle. I felt the exhaustion that Luffy had, and in fact everybody on the ship, that Don Krieg was just not going down. He was just such a formidable foe. So now that I've read it the once, I feel like if I ever reread this series, I would know what I'm in for, and I would know that it had like an end that wasn't like too long. I mean, volumes 6 through 8, I guess, was the whole Don Krieg reign of terror, and it's not that long in hindsight really. But yeah, I was just glad it was over. And so Sanji has now joined the crew, and I'm so happy. I'm so glad. I really like him. I'm glad that he's going to be the chef and doing what he loves, as well as pursuing his dreams of also going to the Grand Line. But where the storyline is, I'm really excited for, because we have these fish pirates, and I am loving their design. They look like fish, they look like sharks, and that's quite scary. The designs of them are great, absolutely great. And one of the reasons why I think the last few volumes were a little bit lacking for me was because we didn't have our core group of characters. We didn't have Zoro, we didn't have Nami, we didn't have Usopp, and now they are back, and I'm so excited because we've had some revelations, especially about Nami. I was like, oh my god, is this real? I can't trust her. I don't know what to think about it. I can't tell if what she is doing is part of a bigger plan, if this is her. I just don't know. She is like so hard to read. But the last we left of Nami, she ran away with the merry-go, she had all the treasure and everything, and she abandoned the group of characters. So Usopp and Zoro have gone after her, as well as Luffy had stayed back to fight against Don Krieg. But now that's all over, so now they're kind of all getting to this island, and Nami, she is part of the Arlong Park pirates, and she says something about how she's always been a pirate. Yeah, she's an officer in Arlong's pirate crew. I was a pirate all along. But I don't know if I believe that she's doing it because she's a pirate, or if she's like working as some kind of mole and she's infiltrating the fishermen pirates. Maybe because the fishermen pirates are kind of terrorizing the island and the different villages, and making the villagers pay, I think, every month to the pirates to stop them from pillaging and to stop them from, well, abusing them. So they are getting so much from these villagers, and I feel like maybe Nami, who grew up in this place, we end up meeting Nami's sibling, and I feel like maybe Nami's grand plan all along, this is just a guess, is that she's gotten all this treasure so that she can bring it back to her home village and save them from these fishermen pirates. That's my guess, because I don't believe that she's been a pirate all along and that she's a bad person. I just think there's definitely way more to her than that. Might be wrong, might be right, who knows? I will let you know. Oh, also, I really enjoyed that we have more world building in this one as well. We have the 7 government recognized pirate leaders, and Hawkeye was one of them, but Jimby, the leader of the fishermen pirates, is another. So we have more goals and more roadblocks now for Luffy as he's on his way to be this pirate king, and it seems like maybe he might have to take down all of these like pirate lords, and I find that so interesting, and the possibilities of that are boundless. And considering Hawkeye was a very formidable and strong opponent that even Zoro couldn't even take down, it's like, well, wow, this is going to be interesting to say the least. But I do really like the direction that we're heading in now, and I think we're getting back on form with the series. Not that the previous volumes weren't on form, I think they were absolutely decent and well done, but I think now my excitement to see the characters develop even more is just that much stronger and go on these adventures, now that we have the core group back together. Well, I guess Luffy still isn't really reunited with them, and Zoro is in a bit of trouble, and Usopp is, well, they are a little bit split up at the minute, but they're in the same volume. That's what I mean. They're in the same volume again, and that makes my heart happy. I've missed them. I've really missed them. So I'd probably give Volume 8 6 pieces out of 10 again. It's definitely a really good start of, I think, what is probably going to be a new arc, and just really good to leave the old arc in the past. And not that it was terrible, but I'm excited to move on. So move on we shall. Volume 9 was so emotional. I feel like it's probably one of the most emotional backstories we've had yet. And I didn't realise going into the series just how many backstories we do get, and how much more alive these characters are feeling with each volume. Nami, like, seriously, like, I think I know her and then I don't, and I cannot predict what she's going to do next. I do think with this volume that we just read, a lot of my theories that I had in the previous volume have come true. So Nami, her backstory is that her foster mum kind of saved her and her sister and ended up raising them as her daughters. And then Arlong's crew came demanding ransom from every single villager, and they have it's so honestly it's heartbreaking, touching but heartbreaking, when Nami's like foster mum, she has enough money to give him for herself, and the villagers are like, pretend you don't have daughters so that she doesn't have to pay for them because she won't be able to afford it, and if she can't afford it then she'll have to die. But she is adamant that those are her daughters, and she dies for that, and it's just it's so sad. It is so sad. I didn't realize like in a manga series just how attached I could feel to characters. And even though like the foster mum was like not really an important character in the grand scheme of things, she's important to Nami and Nami's motivations. And because I have read Nami's backstory, like I understand her motivations so much more, and the fact that she is getting all of this treasure to pay off Arlong and get her village back so that her villagers don't have to live in fear and they can have freedom again. And it's just so sweet and it's so touching. I'll cry in a minute if I keep talking about it. So she's been working for the past 8 years trying to raise 100 million berries, and that's a lot. That's a bloody lot. And I feel devastated because at the end of the volume, Arlong had conspired with somebody from the government to take that money, to take the berries, and now she has to like start from scratch again. And I'm just like, oh, I feel so bad for Nami, and I feel so bad for what she's gone through and what she's still going through. And even though it does look like she betrays people, you can tell that what she does is for the best interest of her family, which I would say her entire village is her family, not just her sister, but the people who live there, who have defended her, who do know about Nami's sacrifice for the village and haven't told her that they know, so that she didn't feel the pressure. So if she ever wanted to quit and, you know, just go off and, you know, live her life, then they wouldn't hold that against her and she wouldn't feel guilty for it. I found that like such a nice touch to it. But yeah, it's just all of it, just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Loved it. You can tell the pages that are black there are backstory. I love how you can differentiate. Like, this is the next volume I need to read, and there isn't any black pages, but when it's a big block of black pages like this, that's backstory. And I'm actually really enjoying backstory. Sometimes I find it really slows down the narrative, but that's only ever in novels. I feel like going in flashbacks in manga format, at least like just from my experience with One Piece, it doesn't slow down the story. It actually enhances what's going on already, and it always is introduced in a way that feels natural to what's going on in that moment, so that we can get bigger context around what's going on, and it doesn't feel like it's awkwardly placed or anything. It's just, it's there, it happens, and it's part of what's happening in that moment. And I love it. I love the way that the flashbacks are introduced. Nami did have me really questioning her, especially when there was a moment a little bit earlier on in the volume where it looked like she murdered Usopp, but it turns out she actually saved him. In this whole back and forth of Nami's kind of ambiguity is so good. I think we've gotten to a moment now where it's very clear what Nami is trying to do, so that I think moving forward we won't have that ambiguity with her anymore. So I'm very excited about that. It's also like really heartbreaking as well how she finds the word friends painful. Like, her sister has revealed so much about her that it explains why Nami can't really feel attached to Luffy or Zoro or Usopp. It's just that she finds friends hard because of the way that she's lived. So that's really heartbreaking. And at the end as well, I felt like I was tearing up this. Arlong is still raining havoc. The villagers are going to fight Arlong, and Nami feels powerless and helpless. She's done all of this that seemingly for nothing, and she looks to Luffy and she says help. And that's like the first time she's ever asked for help from anyone else. She's always had to do things herself. So it's so nice to see her ask for help, because sometimes we just need help, and sometimes that's what friends are for too. So it's like she's making this bridge between Luffy, and it's going to be the start of something, you know, like she's learning, she's growing, and it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Oh, I could talk about Nami forever from this volume. She is just, I was so confused by her to begin with, but now I think I just genuinely love her. She's just, so good. I love her. I'm loving like pretty much all the characters, to be honest. I find them all fantastic. I'd love to see more of Zoro though. I feel like he's taken a little bit of a step back in the previous few volumes, even in this volume. But I think we might be going into a war in volume 10, we have Arlong on the cover there of volume 10, and I feel like there's going to be some kind of battle, and I think Zoro might come out more. So I think I'm going to give volume 9 a good 7 out of 10. It's hit me in the heart, the whole backstory with Nami, everything, and just the way it ended with Nami asking for help from Luffy. Oh, I just got shivers. I genuinely got shivers, and it really made me so emotional. So I think 7 out of 10 is like really, really good, and definitely the best volume since volume 1, I think. Yeah, I would say so. And I'm really excited to see where we go next. So yeah, I'm so excited. I don't want this to be over. I don't want this saga to be over, but then there are like a million other sagas to go, so I don't mind too much. But it's just been so good. I just hope there's no more deaths. I really hope there's no more deaths. I don't think I'd be able to cope. Volume 10 is done, and I'm really enjoying this arc so much more than the previous few. Honestly, even though it's lasting probably around about the same time as the previous couple of arcs, I just feel like things are just moving so quickly and are in motion constantly that I'm not really feeling... Well, I've never felt bored reading any of the arcs so far or any of the volumes, but this one's just... It just feels different. It feels great. And it's so fun. And I love how it's comical. How a lot of the times Luffy is made to be out of action during some of the fights. Like in this one, he gets stuck in the ground. And it's a funny moment. It really is a funny moment. Usopp tries to get him out, but kind of doesn't help really that much. And Luffy ends up getting blasted into the ocean, where a couple of the people from the village, including Nami's sister, try to help him. And that's just like so funny. And there's like an old woman like literally watching me out the window. Like, what is she doing? What is she doing? Please stop looking. She's literally at her front door and she's just looking up into the window. It's making me feel like really awkward. Just like squinting. It's like she's trying to see what I'm doing. I don't want to look anymore. Can't she stop, please? This is like really awkward. Yeah, she's still look. I'm just gonna have to continue. What was I even saying? Yes, Luffy is kind of out of action. It's quite funny, and I love the tension that scene brings, and just trying to get him out of the water because he's kind of stuck at the bottom of the ocean with the ground. Like, what would you call it? Like a block of concrete on his feet because he got pulled out from the ground, and that's like weighed him down. Oh my god, will she please stop looking? She usually does stand at her front door and just watches the world go by, but she doesn't have to watch the world go by in this room. But yeah, Luffy was out of action for a bit, and then he ends up coming back to it. I love, though, that Luffy, at the very start of this volume, was pretty much like, you made Nami cry, and I'm going to make you pay. And I love that. I love that a lot. She's still fucking looking. Can't she stop? We're going to move position just a little bit because she's honestly making me feel really weird and self-conscious. So Nami didn't really feature as much in this one. We did actually have some good scenes with Usopp, and he fights this really weird guy with these huge fish lips. I can't take him seriously. It's hilarious. His lips are like sticking right out, and it just reinforces the incredible look of these fishmen, because Arlong as well is so terrifying. Like, his teeth are shark teeth and they're very strong and powerful, and his nose is unbreakable, and it's just such a scary looking design. So this whole fight that's going on actually feels like quite scary as well. And yeah, we get to see Zoro like really fight. He's really fighting. He has like really grievous wounds that haven't really healed from his past few fights. Yeah, you know how I was moaning about Zoro not really fighting that much in the previous few volumes? Well, I mean, he's kind of dying from his grievous wounds, so no wonder. I keep forgetting about that because sometimes the realism in this series, I don't know how to take it, because we do have Zoro like suffering from these wounds that were inflicted a good few volumes back now, and like they haven't really healed, and yet he's still like standing, fighting and beating the guy with the 6 swords, and it's like awesome and incredible and epic. But I don't know when this series wants me to find it believable or to suspend my disbelief. Because, like, really, Zoro should have died by now, right? But no, he's not. He's still standing. But then there are other moments when people can survive on islands for, like, 60 days without eating. And I'm a little bit confused about how realistic this series is supposed to be. So I guess that's kind of why I kind of brushed off Zoro's wounds from a few volumes back, because I just thought they'd magically heal on their own, but they haven't. And I kind of like that though, because we have Zoro who's like on the brink of death. He's got like these dead man eyes, and he's still fighting. He's fighting to the death, and he's still strong, and he still beats his opponents. He's that great of a swordsman that it's just incredible to watch, and it makes it that much more exciting. And he could probably die at any moment, which is scary, and I really don't want him to. I really don't want him to die. Yeah, Luffy is now out of the water and he's fighting Arlong, and I really do hope that he beats him. I really do. Oh, and you know how I just mentioned as well that Nami wasn't really in it? There is a moment in this that is just like, again, so impactful. And that's when Nami has a choice to join Arlong and save the villagers from being killed by him, or she's going to stay and fight with Luffy and Zoro and Usopp. But Nami ends up choosing her friends, which is such a huge and impactful moment for her. She probably could have chosen the easier route, the easier option, the way out, but no, she's going to stick by her friends and the villagers are going to stick with them too and going to kick their asses. I can't wait to see their asses get kicked. We're almost done with the East Blue Saga. I'm really sad. But it's back to reading for me, volume 11. Here we go. That end battle with Arlong was such a spectacle. I bloody loved it. The way that Luffy and Arlong fight in the Arlong Park building, and the way it just crumbles down, and how Luffy is destroying the workplace where Nami was making all of these charts and things for Arlong, and he just like targets that and he destroys it so that Nami can finally be free from Arlong. And it was such a great spectacle. Absolutely love the way that wrapped up. Probably my favourite villain downfall so far. It was so good. And then it doesn't even end there. Volume 11 just continued on, and we have them leave the island and they go to Loguetown, which led to some really good confrontations. We had Lady Alvida come back and she's transformed. She's had some of the devil fruit and she looks beautiful now, although she thinks she looked beautiful from the get-go. But yeah, now she's different, and Buggy the Clown is there as well. And it was really cool to have that kind of moment with them about to execute Luffy on the execution stand that Gold Roger was on, the previous King of the Pirates, the one who set everyone on this mission to find the One Piece, and he's about to die, and Luffy laughs, and people are saying the last time a pirate laughed in the face of death was Gold Roger. So there must be some kind of symbolism there that Luffy is probably destined to be the next Pirate King, which honestly I am genuinely hoping that he does become the Pirate King. I am staking my life on Luffy becoming the Pirate King. He's got to do it. He's got to do it. So the whole Loguetown thing was pretty interesting. We had Zoro come across a woman who looks like the girl who died during his flashback. And yeah, he meets a woman who looks just like her, and she turns out to be Sergeant Tashigi. And so she is working like kind of for the Navy, and there is this huge bounty on Luffy's head now, like 30 million berries for Luffy, wanted dead or alive. So this adds even more to the fact that there's going to be so many people hunting Luffy in the future. Bounty hunters, the Marines, pirates, everyone is going to be out to get Luffy. So his influence is just like boundless, and still Luffy doesn't care. He doesn't care. Honestly, that guy, he's so carefree. And I wish I was more like him. Genuinely, I wish I could strip a lot of my inhibitions and just live like Luffy. But I'm hoping that he doesn't do something drastic that will hurt somebody else, which is one of my biggest fears with Luffy at the minute, is that maybe he's a bit too reckless, that somebody else will get hurt because of it. But at the same time, I don't want Luffy to change. I genuinely don't want him to change. I want him to continue being carefree, funny, you know, just no inhibitions, and just achieve his dreams. That's what I want. There's also an interesting thing about the famous swords. There's 12 Supreme Grade swords, 21 Excellent Grade swords, and 40 Fine Grade swords. And for some reason now, I'm just like picturing some kind of video game where you're collecting these swords and you're also trying to beat the pirate lords and you're trying to find the One Piece. Like, this would make a fantastic video game. Like, One Piece, like from the beginning, like say the East Blue Saga onwards, would probably make a fantastic video game. I think they are making a One Piece game, but it might be an original story. I don't know. I think I randomly came across that because I'm a huge gamer. I love gaming. I have PlayStation 5 and I play it almost religiously. I've been more reading this past year than anything else, but I do love video games. So if I can play a One Piece video game, then you can bet your ass I'm going to play it. But there's so many things in this that just makes me think, oh, this would be so fantastic to play. You know, finding these swords, like amazing. That would be great. Going across the seas, going to these different places, fighting these different bosses. That would just, like, is there a video game based? I'm going to have to research this. There might already be a video game based on One Piece. But actually, this was like another really good volume. I was enjoying my time reading this. I also love when Nami leaves her village too. She steals everyone's wallets. She is always going to be a thief. And, you know, now she's given back to her village. She can now start focusing on herself. I think she said at one point as well that now she can still steal money, but this time it's going to go for her. And I shouldn't be you know, approving of stealing or anything like that. But this is Nami we're talking about, you know. I kind of hope she steals as much as she wants and lives the life that she's destined to have. And I believe Nami's only stealing from bad people. She's a little bit like a Robin Hood kind of character. You know, she's never going to steal from somebody innocent and good. She's mainly stealing from bad people. Even though she did steal the villagers' wallets and stuff, that was more comedic moment. And the fact that she gave all of that money to them, it's like, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. That was just her goodbye to the village, and it was beautiful. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give this one 7 out of 10 too. It was a great volume. It kept me hooked all the way through. Loving the downfall of Arlong, loving the higher stakes with Luffy being wanted, and the possibilities are endless now with the future, as they always have been. Honestly, this is such an imaginative series. But now it's volume 12. However, I did look on the One Piece wiki, and it says that chapter 100 is the last chapter in the East Blue Saga, and chapter 100 is the first chapter of volume 12. So that means chapter 101, which is the second chapter in this volume, is the next saga, which I think is the Arabasta saga. And I don't want to read the next saga yet. I want to finish off the East Blue saga and do a whole new video for the Arabasta saga in November. So I think I've only got one chapter left to read. I'll read that now, and I'll double check that's definitely the last chapter in the East Blue saga. I'll read the chapter, I'll come back to you, and we're just going to probably wing it from there. Hi, me again. Just a few minutes later, I have finished chapter 100, and yeah, it definitely feels like the end of a saga and starting a new one. And it does say that the next arc is Reverse Mountain arc, and that is chapter 101. So I'm gonna leave that there. It feels weird not finishing a volume, quite honestly. I never like leaving books in the middle of something, and this is going to be like this for like the next month until I can get to the next arc. But yeah, I finished chapter 100. I'm not going to rate volume 12 because I haven't finished volume 12, but it was a really good chapter. It was very intense, even though it was like quite short. We have Luffy and the team escaping Loguetown, and there's a storm, and they need to get off it before the storm gets any worse. Otherwise, they will be stuck on this island. And we have Captain Smoker, who is part of the Navy, as well as Tashigi, now set on getting Zoro and his sword, because she doesn't want evil men or pirates or anyone she considers bad to have the legendary swords. So they have like a tiny little fight. There was some mention about how he wasn't going to kill her because she's a woman, or at least that was her perception of it. But he says that she reminds him of a friend of his who died, and it was a little bit of a weird exchange, not gonna lie, especially since she says how she was copying her or something like that. I don't know, but that was a bit weird. And I love the way the chapter ends too, with the goals of each of the characters being, I'm going to find all the blue, that Sanji says, and Luffy says I'm going to be king of the pirates, Zoro says I'm going to be the world's greatest swordsman, Nami says she's going to draw a map of the world, Usopp is going to become a brave warrior of the sea, because he still has a long way to go to be brave, although he has shown so much progression, so much growth since his first ever appearance. I think he does have a long way to go to be a true brave warrior, even though he is pretty good at the minute. That is East Blue Saga done. Oh, wow. It went by so quick, mainly because I literally just read these over the course of 24 hours. It was so good, a great introduction into this world, I think, and I have heard that it just gets better from here, so I'm so excited for the future, and I definitely will be covering each saga from now on. I really wanted to try out the East Blue Saga first, make sure that I liked the series, and turns out I do. I really do enjoy it. So I've already tried to order some of the next volumes of the omnibus, and time will only tell if they actually arrive. And some of them seem a bit costly, so I'm keeping an eye on them and hoping prices come down, although I'm not really holding out hope on that. If I don't get them in time, I will just read them online. I will pay the $2 a month or whatever to read them on, is it the Shonen Jump website or something like that? I will figure it out. But all in all, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love my time reading this, and so excited to read more of Luffy's adventures. Never did I think I would fall in love with characters so quickly, honestly. But if you can, do subscribe to watch my future installments of the One Piece series, me reading them for the first time. I'm definitely going to have the next saga read in November, and then every month after that I'll be catching up on the sagas. It's just next month is just so busy. It's October. It's a really spooky full time. I have so much content planned for it already, so I won't be able to fit it in, and I don't think I'll get the volumes in time for it either. But yes, I will definitely get the rest of One Piece read. So I hope you stick around for that journey. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on One Piece East Blue Saga. Let me know if you're a One Piece fan and if there's anything you'd like to see me improve on. If you'd like to make any suggestions, I'm all ears. Also, I won't be offended if you tell me that I pronounce loads of things wrong. I always do. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting me and making content like this possible. If you'd like to join my Patreon or follow me on any social media, then all the links are down in the description box. But yeah, that's it, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye!